I know that over the last few years that you have told me about people who have described themselves as suffering from confusion, which Susan calls, uh, let me rephrase this again, scrambled brain syndrome.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to see how to work through that. And I know that we've all felt that at some point in time. And so we're looking forward to find out how to solve this problem.
Excellent. You will.
Or how to
You
deal
will.
with somebody that we know
Absolutely.
of is going through it.
Yeah.
Oh my, okay. Our girl has all these answers, oh boy. I'm going to take notes myself. Okay, Susan, number one, I know, of course, that you've worked with a lot of people who complain of this kind of confusion and the stress that comes from this. So please be clear for us and describe this, please.
You know, it's really interesting. A number of years ago, I was working with somebody, and I felt as if my brain had been scrambled after I had a meeting with this woman. And I immediately called my friend, Dr. Mark Chillingar, who's a psychotherapist, and I said to him, this is the strangest experience. I just saw this woman who was my client. She's so confused. I'm telling you, Mark, I feel as if my own brain is as scrambled as hers is. And he said to me, aha, scrambled brain syndrome. And he was kidding. He was kidding. But you know what? I've called it that ever since because that's what it feels like. And if you've ever felt as if just being around this person makes you feel like your head is, you know, not demonic possession, Linda Blair going around in circles like that, but I mean just like, wow, just stop. You know, it feels like you're whipping eggs in my head. Okay, so that's what it is. That's what it feels like when you have it. That's what it feels like when you're around someone who has it, because we are all osmotic. We are all empathetic. And so if you're around somebody who's got this, you're going to feel very much like that in their presence.
Thank you. That explains a lot. I'm sure that we've all experienced that.
Yeah, it's very, very uncomfortable.
Well, a lot of energy too there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to get through the confusion. Well, how about this question? Are the people who have the scrambled brain syndrome aware of it, like with ADD or ADHD, or are they in denial about this and they're confused?
Yeah, it's interesting. Fred, if you would put up the whole brain map for a moment. When people, thank you, when people have scrambled brain syndrome, really, they're not able to utilize their blue upper left brain quadrant and logically analyze, quantify data. It's like they're not able to digest data, as if they were lactose intolerant. So if you've ever been lactose intolerant, you have ice cream, and then you have some sort of digestive problem very, very soon afterwards. You feel sick, and you just spend a lot of time being physically miserable because your body doesn't digest the lactose. That's what happens with information and people who have this problem. They're not able to digest the information, therefore they're not able to do anything with it. And if they're not able to do anything with the information, then their life hasn't improved and they're not operating in an intelligent and practical way. So they can make dangerous decisions, they can refuse to make any decisions at all. Both of them are symptoms of the same problem.
Well, thank you. That gives us a lot of clarity.
And, for us, if we know them, we just get crazier and crazier by the moment because they're just non-functional, right? You've seen that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that tends to make me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah, of course. You just want to get away from it.
Yes. Oh, my. Okay, well, why do people feel so confused about how to solve problems in business, health, finances, and or relationships?
Well, if we're talking about scrambled brain syndrome, it's because they've not been able to really gather and absorb and digest information about a particular area. So somebody may be perfectly functional in one area. They may be a loving parent. They may be a loving spouse. but they may have absolutely no understanding of what to do and what not to do about money, or what to do and what not to do about creating a business, or running a business, or being a successful employee and not being fired. So they just aren't able to digest and absorb any of the information that would make somebody successful. Because again, success lives in the upper left brain for so many things. Any kind of business, you have to be able to manage money. Any kind of political situation, you have to be able to analyze history and facts. Any kind of health issue, you have to be able to look at the data, look at the information, look at the tests, really understand the expertise of certain specialists. So people have very, very serious problems when they're not able to digest and absorb data.
Boy, that's so. If you have complications, try to get an understanding.
Yeah,
That's really important. Try to get the facts.
Yeah, I mean, we don't wake up in the morning with problems and we don't know how they got there. We have problems, usually, that were there the day before and last week and last month and last year, and we just didn't have the skills we needed to solve them. You know, we didn't know how to avoid the problems then, and now we're stuck facing the problems today. Well, that's where you need experts. You know, people who are experts in the field. Well, that's obvious. But then they don't have the ability to analyze where to find the expert, or which expert would be the right expert to hire. And, you know, this is not an IQ problem. I've had clients who are very smart, but something's just literally scrambled. So we have to unscramble them.
Oh, I love that. So there is a way out of this.
Always.
That's
You know, if you've got me on the show, it's because there's a way out.
exactly, exactly.
I'm certainly not going to come on and talk about something that's hopeless, but I haven't found anything yet that's really hopeless. There's a way out for everything.
I like that. Great.
Yeah. And I don't mean out the window out. There's a solution for everything.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I wonder now if you'd give us an example of the problems and the crises that happen to people who suffer from this and they don't learn how to go about solving their confusion.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting that somebody can have a great idea, a really great idea, but have no ability to understand how to take that idea and turn it into something that's practical. And Fred, again, if you could put the whole brain map up, I don't know if you can, but if you could, then I could really speak about the way that one thinks. Thank you, Fred. There are two ways of thinking. You either start at the upper right brain, the yellow, then you look at the facts, you gather facts, the blue, then you move down into the people and the feelings that the people have who are going to help you with the solution, which is the red, and then you take action, which is the green. So that's a backward Z. Now, the other alternative is a backward C, where you start with logical information, and from logical information you go to the idea, and then from the idea you go into the people and the feelings you have and the feelings they have about it, and then you go into action. So that's thinking. So either, you know, or that's thinking. Anything else may often be scrambled because you're not getting anywhere.
Oh, there you go.
And one thing that people who have this described to me is, well, they feel like they're going around and around and around. Well, they are. They are literally going around and around. So when I teach them, you know, how you do this, you know, backwards Z, or you do a C, and that's thinking, and they can follow it, and they can do it, and they keep the map up in their house, then it's a completely different world that opens up. So that's how we get one group of people out of the whole scramble thinking thing.
Well, you're right. You have this simply set up.
Yes.
So it's doable.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
I mean,
the
it's
good
not
news.
easy, and it is doable.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Well, I know I refer to that chart, Susan. Thank you. It's been very helpful.
Yes, wonderful.
Uh, well, now perhaps you can give us an example of someone in business who seemed to be unable to be logical and analyze a problem.
Yes, I remember the very first person that I identified with this problem, which caused me to call Mark Chillingar that day, was a woman who had an idea about dolls and charity. And she had this idea, and so she was telling me this idea at this lunch. And so I started asking her, well, who does she think is going to produce these dolls? And what price does she think the dolls need to sell for? And since she was planning on importing them from Mexico, what has she researched to discover the difference between the price she's going to pay for them in Mexico and how much it's going to cost to get them over the border and pay any kind of import taxation, etc.? Has she figured out where she's going to find the sales reps? I mean, no matter what question I asked, she just looked at me as if I was speaking a foreign language. So I said, well, I was a designer for 20 years, and I was a manufacturer for many, many years, and I was in production for many years, and I traveled all over the world. So I imagine you have a lot of questions, and we could create a list of the questions, and then you could find the answers, and I'll help you find the answers, etc. And she said to me, no. I said, I'm sorry, a little confused when you say no. You mean you don't yet have a list of questions? She said, no, I mean, it's all just going to come. I said, what's going to just come? She said, well, it's just going to appear. It's just going to appear. I said, what's just going to appear? She said, it's all going to work out. One is tempted to say, how much would you like to bet and show me your money, right? That's the temptation, And I was sitting at Cava in Montecito, and it was all I could do, not to say, oh my goodness, this is dangerous. This is not thinking. This is scrambled. There's something scrambled here. She honestly believed it. Now, luckily for her, I actually had a client who was a doll designer and who knew how to make dolls herself, one at a time. I said, well, maybe you work with so-and-so. Bobby Joe Free is the name of the doll designer. Work with Bobby Joe, and maybe she would be able to make the original doll, and then you could work with different factories and find. No, didn't really want to do any of that. And that was pretty much the end of it. And I'm telling you, that is scrambled. Because she had a really good heart. She wanted to make a difference. She wanted poor people in Mexico who needed jobs, women who knew how to sew, to have an opportunity. She was fine up to there. But when it came to actually making something happen that wasn't an emotional thing and wasn't an idea, she just couldn't get anywhere. And there was nothing that I seemed to be able to say to her that allowed her to wake up and realize that she had to figure things out in a logical way and connect some dots in order for this to happen.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, and she just was lost in space. She was just lost in space. She was just going around and around and around. And truly, after an hour or so of sitting with her at lunch, I honestly felt, it was just awful. It was awful. I couldn't wait. As I drove away from the restaurant, I was thinking, oh my God, I am saved, because if I had to sit there, it was like being in the snake pit with that old movie with Olivia de Havilland, where she was sane and they put her into a mental institution with crazy people. That's what it felt like. It's like, thank God I've survived. I'm out of this. Yeah, very, very weird.
I'm guessing nothing came of this,
No,
right?
no.
Oh my. Well,
And what's interesting is I actually know someone who started a doll business. So I know, and I don't mean Bobby Joe, who's a doll designer. I mean, I know someone who started a doll business. Alexis, my former fiance, helped him get a $250,000 loan after there was a hurricane in Florida. So he helped him write the application. They got the samples. They sold the dolls. They bought the dolls. They sold more dolls. They made a lot of money. It's a business like any other business.
oh my goodness. Well, I think we've all experienced trying to talk some sense into
And it was
somebody
just
that
so sad.
isn't open for it.
Because I knew all the doll business things that I mentioned. I knew all about that when I was sitting there and having lunch with her. And all I wanted to do, I was hoping that I could explain to her, and there was just no way.
Oh, how frustrating for you, Susan. You want to
you.
help. You want to contribute.
Don't we all? I mean, don't we all?
Most of us,
Yeah.
I'm staying with the facts. Well, maybe limited to my experience, but moving on. Okay, got another good question here.
Yes.
Am I read enough yet? Okay. Well, so therefore, what do you believe is the biggest confusion for many people who own their own business and finding out that they have a lot of financial challenges?
Aha. Is it a hobby or is it a business? Is it a hobby because you love doing it, you're doing what you enjoy, you're having fun, you're spending lots of your own money, and you're not focused on bringing in money, return on investment, ROI, and or you're thinking about return on investment, but you have no idea how to get it, or you're not getting it. So that's a hobby. Versus a business, a real business starts when you get your first order. This is probably shocking news to you. It is to most people that I work with as part of the sales forum training. Your business starts not when you spend money on business cards, not when you spend money on new computers and printers and all that stuff, not if you sign a lease for an office, not if you get a new cell phone or a landline or heaven knows what. That's all your idea of what you think you need to start a business. A real business starts when you get your first order. And I am begging you to do that before you do all the other things that I described. To the best of your ability, you need to get your first order from somebody before you do all the things about going into business. Otherwise, what proof do you have that this is a business and not a hobby? And that's where the greatest amount of pain occurs for people who think they've started businesses, but in the first 2 years, they don't have enough business, and therefore they can't afford it. Now, if that's the case, that's fine. Run your business out of your house. There are tremendous IRS benefits. Do that. Please do that. But if you are convinced it's a business, that's because you already have your first customer.
Thank you for the clarity on that. We've all seen people go through that, and the reality is you have to really find out the facts.
That's right.
This is going to work. This is doable.
That's right. Nobody would buy a car that they didn't test drive and research. They wouldn't think about it. And yet, when it comes to starting a business, countless people think that, build it and they will come. I wish they had never made that movie. That is a dangerous, dangerous idea. Build it and they will come is a movie idea, from the guy with the baseball diamond. Maybe if he had $5 million, or maybe if you have $1 or $2 million, you can build it and see if they come. But if you are planning on building something and you need to be able to sell tickets to that thing, then please be confirmed that you pre-sell. So you know absolutely that you have customers and they're already lined up and they're throwing money at you.
Oh, I like that. Well, that's another reality check, of course, that when the doors do open, you have things going on already.
Well, I was the first divorce coach. And nobody heard of a divorce coach. And you'd think when 50, 60, depending on the year, 65, 70% of all marriages end in divorce, you would think that 100 million people would be sitting outside of my door. But no, because I had to explain what a divorce coach is, explain what the benefit is, demonstrate how the benefit works, convince them that this is real and legitimate and will save them, as it does. It can save them. It can save them $50,000, $60,000 if they avoid litigation. It can save them more than that. But no, just because you have a great idea is no guarantee. And when people call me and I tell them the truth about how much money I spent putting my company together and how long it took me before I started having enough, clients to really make a living, that people are stunned. They just are stunned.
And so there's the reality right there.
Absolutely.
Being of service sometimes
Yeah.
can be challenging.
Yeah, you have to have enough money to pay your rent or your mortgage and buy yourself groceries and put gas in the car, irrespective of clients coming or not coming and paying you for a substantial amount of time.
Regardless of how needed that is,
Yeah,
I know.
it has nothing to do with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing to do with that.
That's the point right there.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay, well, now that my mind's opening up some more, let's explore this, a little more. Okay, so for all of the clients that you have who really do want to start a business, or who, let's say, already have a small business, what is the safest way to operate?
You really have to use your whole brain. So you have to either do the C, which is starting at the logical and moving over to the idea, and then going down into the feelings and the people who's going to help you, who's going to sell it, who's going to buy it, and then and only then take action. Or if you're more of a right brain person, you start in the visionary brain, and then you go over to the facts and the figures. You force yourself to sit in front of the computer and research. You force yourself to go out and look at stores who carry the kind of products you're thinking of inventing and selling. And then you go down into your feelings about it. Is it still exciting? Do you know people who are willing to buy it? Do you know people who are capable of selling it? And then and only then take action and invest what you have to invest. And keep doing that process. I don't mean that like the day before they start the business, they do the C version of thinking or the Z version of thinking. I mean countless times throughout each day, every day, 7 days a week, until they're a success.
Oh, I like that. Now, what about addiction? Is the Scrambled Brain Challenge identical to addiction?
Well, it's funny. I used to think it was. But I have since found out that what's interesting is some addicts are highly functional. Attorneys who can be addicts, and even when they're drunk or when they're stoned or whatever it is, they can really function very well, and they can discipline when they're drinking or taking drugs and only do it when they don't have a case or when they're not in court. And I remember Elaine Stritch, the famous actress, used to say that she was drunk every day but never when she was on stage. So they can be highly functional, but when they're using whatever the substance is, then they sound like they're scrambled. Their brain is, overloaded with drugs or alcohol. They're not thinking straight. But the thing about this scrambled brain syndrome is that person is that way all the time. Until they fix it, until they solve it, until you change your brain, the problem is there.
Okay, so the other is temporary under the influence of something.
Exactly. That's a great way of saying it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, moving on, what are the similarities and differences between addicts that you work with and the very spiritual people that you meet at different ashrams in America and in India?
Thank you. It's interesting. I've seen a lot of very scrambled people at ashrams. Very scrambled people. And I've attended some AA meetings with clients when they were getting cakes or chips or whatever. So I've seen a lot of people who were very scrambled there when they talked. Because presumably they're at an AA meeting, they're not loaded, they're not drunk. And they were very scrambled. So there's a lot of similarity between the addict who's a very confused person and therefore becomes an addict and stays an addict. And there's a lot of similarity between the person who's a spiritual devotee, as I am, and wanted to have peace and wanted to have joy and went to India so many times and studied with so many masters. But ultimately, the real devotee is never going to stay that way. The real devotee has access to an enlightened master who has the ability to change our brain. So the reason that people go to India or Thailand or Burma or wherever it is and they're studying with enlightened masters is to get their brain clear, to get peaceful, to get happy, to have a fully functioning brain. But of course, every so-called master isn't really a master. So if you don't find that you're functioning far better after a very short period of time of studying with and being in the presence of someone, then I would really question if that's really an enlightened master or not.
There you go.
And get out, because there are plenty of other places to go.
Oh, that's
Plenty
good
of
to
other
pay
ones.
attention to
Yeah,
again.
Yeah.
Very concerning.
Yeah, because a real enlightened master is a whole brain thinker and a highly functioning person. They're very, very spiritual, upper right brain. They're very compassionate and very connected to other people, lower right brain. They have to run a major organization. I mean, in City Yoga, millions and millions and millions of people all over the world and centers all over the world. So they have to be logical, they have to analyze data, they have to have people doing the accounting, people doing the investing, and they have to manage those people. And then they have to work hard every day, usually 18, 20 hours a day. So a truly enlightened master is just an example of a whole brain person.
Oh, I love that. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it's, nonsense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I get it.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, now let's explore this. How do you work with people who haven't enjoyed facing facts in the past and who have paid a high price in their life? How do they learn to shift so that they can indeed make way better decisions?
Well, I had the most thrilling call tonight from a wonderful client, talented, lovely, sweet, intelligent, wonderful. But she has been suffering with some real confusion for a period of time. And I connected her with Jeff Wilson. And so I spoke to Jeff yesterday. I told her all about him, and I told him all about her. And Jeff did a healing on her tonight. And she called me right away, right after it. And she was a different person. She was truly a different person. The person who called me last night, this woman, was not the same person who called me tonight. And the difference was not the work that I did with her last night, in my opinion. The difference was that today she had a session with Jeff, and he reconnected her body to her brain to her higher self to spirit, and she was in alignment, and she was present and logical, and she sounded like a completely different person.
That's so encouraging.
Yes. And I'm having a session with her tomorrow, and we're working on a very important part of her business, which is sales. And I can tell you guys, when I speak to her tomorrow, she is going to be a different person tomorrow than she was yesterday and the day before and the day before that.
Oh, she's making a lot of progress.
Yeah, yeah. And the difference is that she was in enough pain last night that she trusted me and she was willing to get out of that pain and have a session with Jeff. But I speak to people with scrambled stuff all the time who don't have the ability to make that decision.
And what gets in the way?
Well, it's interesting. I spoke to two people about it today. Well, in the last 24 hours. One was this woman who, while I was on the phone with her, I called Jeff, did a three-way call, left a message. She said her phone number. She was committed. It happened. I spoke to somebody else a few days ago on Sunday and also today, and she's in a worse situation than this other woman, and up to now she has not been willing to work with him. She thinks that she doesn't have enough money. In fact, it's very, very inexpensive to work with Jeff. But the point is, I say to her, you don't have enough money to not get this problem solved. This problem is so severe, if you don't have enough money to spend on getting healed, then the problem is even more serious than you thought. And in fact, she does have the money. She does have the money. But she doesn't see it that way. She's so frightened. She's so anxious. And fear is a story. Because the truth is, if someone's ill or someone's confused or they're having trouble with their brain and they don't want to die, what's their choice? They have to fix this. And in this second woman's case, she trusts me. It's just that the money, which is a tiny amount of money, I mean a really small amount of money, the cost of 2 mediocre dinners in a restaurant in Santa Barbara. That's what it costs. That's what it costs to work with me for an hour. That's what it costs to work with Jeff for an hour, you know? So be careful about the decisions you make. There's nothing more important than being healthy, truly healthy, and there's nothing more important about being healthy than having a brain that functions.
Well worth the investment, no doubt.
There's no alternative.
Yeah.
You know, there's no alternative.
Oh, thank you. That's very powerful information. I can see that we're running a little behind for a clip that we'd like you all to enjoy. I know we will. It's with Reverend Bernard Goodman. It's about the past, moving forward into the future. Let's hear what he has to say.
God in all his wisdom has decided that 2010 for us and 2012 for humanity. We're going to end the ways of the old. We're going to begin the ways of the new. And there are people in this room right now. Remember, this is our 2012. 2010 is our 2012. There are people in this room who are already doing the next phase of existence on this planet. They're already doing what's going to save this planet forever. They're already operating at the new level of frequency and existence that is going to change this planet, that is changing this planet forever. And people who come in contact with them are changed forever because of who they are, because of their beingness. Doing is sort of an outside factor from what they're being. So it's all about being who you are. And who you are is perfect. I know some of you may not think so, but who you are is perfect. Yeah, some more perfect than others, but all of you are perfect. And the point being that you were made intentionally because you're not a mistake. So we're going to give you 4 words that really is the destiny of this planet, some of which you guys already know about very well. And the 4 words are undescribable, undefinable, unexplainable, and at the same time, undeniable. Because there's no way you could explain something with earth language that comes from beyond earth. And every single one of you are from beyond earth, whether you know it or not. And some of you are actually doing from beyond earth, and are being given the tools and the abilities and the instruments to do what is beyond earth, so that earth can actually become a healing planet instead of a dying planet, or a sick planet, or an insane planet. And those of us who know there's a lot of insanity out there. But as more and more of this energy of you becomes more and more of this energy of planet Earth, the insanity will begin to lessen and lessen and lessen until it's gone forever. And sanity will become the new hope, for those who use that term. And all of you are basically the new hope. Now, what I find interesting is who is here today and who's not here today. And again, the art of speaking is whoever is there determines what is to be spoken. You got a hat for your feet? That's brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Don't change it. That's brilliant. Do your feet talk to you? So, the point being...
I was kind of
No, knock yourself out. That's all right. You join the lady back there. Anyway, so the point being, what was I saying? I lost myself. What was I saying? Anybody listen? Right. So the people who are here determines what is to be spoken or said, and they're doing the saying, so evidently you people are here because you have requested hearing what they're giving you, what they're saying to you, because you are everything they're saying to you. So take a look at where you are in your lives and in your evolution for you to request what they're saying to you today. Remember, there are no accidents. Everything is timed exactly according to their plan, and we are not in charge of any of this. So for them to be saying to you whatever they're saying to you today, and a lot of things they're saying to you is really more than what they're saying to you. There's a lot of in-between secret stuff being said without mentioning names and where people are sitting. And so you need to know that you not only have to hear the words, you also have to hear between the lines. So what they're saying is they're actually in a process right now of, interesting, validating your life. Validating who you are, how far you've come, where you are at this point in your life, because you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Now, it's been a long time since the Mountain Lady showed up. It's been a long time since Virginia Martin showed up, which means that at their own level of existence, in the privacy of their life, they've been evolving and expanding to where they are now able to receive the information we're giving to you today, because they're part of this entire package. And the title of this entire package is Healing the World, one human at a time or more than one human at a time. And one non-human at a time and more than one non-human at a time. Animal, vegetable, mineral. Everything gets healed. I have to tell you that I've been talking over a period of time, and I've been saying to people how rocks talk, and I've had people actually tell me, well, now they're talking to me. I had two occasions where you live and one occasion somewhere else. She lives in San Ynez, where rocks talk to me. And yeah, right. The other time was, I think, in Montecito or something, where I'm driving and I see where rocks, all of a sudden, I have been made aware of where rocks are placed by humans and how that's intentional. I don't know why, but it's intentional. And I was driving this other place, and there were these 3 mounds of rocks in front of a house, both exactly the same. I know it's a message. I know it has a meaning, probably an Indian meaning. I don't know what it is, but they were there. So it's like rocks are living things, all right? And so are trees and plants. And I know people who are talking to plants and trees and back and forth. You've done that yet? Has that started with you yet? We will. So how's your hair?
Huh?
How's your hair?
How's my hair?
Yeah, I asked you first. How's your hair?
It's tickling.
Good. I'm proud of you, kid. Thank you for watching if you're watching. Thank you for listening if you're listening. Thank you for being here if you're here. And just know that life is going to get better than it was before. You can trust that. And whatever it takes to get there, it will get there. Sayonara. So, thank you.
You know, that's such a beautiful ending to that clip. I love that because Bernard always sees the wonderful things that are coming for us. That immediately takes you out of that state of fear. It takes you out of a state of confusion. And it's very, very powerful because he does truly see what's coming. And he sees enough wonderful things, and they keep coming, and we're still here, right? So that's the proof, undeniable.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bernard. Now, Susan, I have a lot of ground to cover with you.
Fast. We'll talk fast.
Are people with scrambled brain syndrome dangerous to others as well to themselves?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's really confused which is what we're saying. We're talking about a confusion, a deeper level of confusion that's not going away anytime soon unless they really work hard to make it go away. So yeah, somebody who drinks and drives, confused. Someone who texts and drives, confused. Someone who leaves their car almost empty in a place where it's likely to have a hurricane, an earthquake, confused. Someone who has some sort of a health symptom for a long period of time and does nothing about it. I'm not saying that they should go to this one or that one. I'm saying does nothing about it. Someone whose business is, not producing any sales, they're not bringing any money, and they keep spending the way they used to. So these are all very dangerous behaviors, and if you're in a relationship with this person, it's dangerous. I mean, I have a dear friend whose son was very lucky because he was in a car with someone who was not really paying attention, lost control of the car, and the boy who was driving got serious problems at the hospital, and thankfully, my friend's son was okay. Thankfully, by a miracle. So yeah, people can be very, very dangerous to themselves and to us if they're not paying attention.
Thank you, Susan. I know I personally have gotten out of a car at an intersection with somebody that I couldn't trust.
Yeah, good for you.
Okay,
Good
we'll
for
pay
you.
attention to ourselves as well. Well, so if it feels so much better for us, let's say to get away from them, to run for our life, is that okay?
Yes. You got out of a car at an intersection when somebody had come to a stop for a light or a stop sign. You knew that it was dangerous.
Yes.
I know you, so you had attempted to motivate that person to let you drive, I'm sure, because you're a great driver. And you couldn't get anywhere, and you cannot be a sitting duck while somebody is risking their life if you're in the car with them. Absolutely not. You have to get away any way you can, and there are a lot of scenarios, not just when somebody's driving.
Absolutely. Yeah, so have the courage to run for your life once again.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, now let's explore what are the guidelines if you are, in fact, in a relationship with someone who does have this scrambled brain syndrome and you really want to help them.
Well, the most tragic things that ever happened in my life, and they could have been 1,000 times worse, was when I was younger. And I honestly thought that since I knew certain solutions, even before I was officially, doing what I do, that my boyfriend or my husband or my fiance or my best friend would listen to me. The truth is, if you're in a personal relationship with somebody, the odds of them listening to you, in my opinion, my experience, and my client's experience, is pretty much zero. Unless you really get new skills and tools and bring in some professional, whether it's me or someone like me, to help you chart these conversations. Because it's a lot more complicated to motivate and inspire somebody who's really confused than it is to, let's say, motivate your teenage daughter. And you know how difficult that is, right? Okay, so this is 100 times more complicated because they're not really listening. They just don't have the ability to really listen.
I love that. I understand that completely. That would be very helpful. And then perhaps things can be sorted through.
Yeah, and there are so many different forms that this scrambling takes. And there are so many different things that I use when I'm working with a family where somebody has this, or I'm working with the person directly, to unscramble it. It can be brain chemistry, it can be an inability to logically, track through anything. So it's usually biochemical and brain wiring. It's usually not one or the other.
I appreciate that, Susan. It'd be nice for people that have issues to get to somebody like Susan so that they can identify it, descramble, and move forward to a more enjoyable life.
And this woman today, she had one session with Jeff Wilson. and she's worked with me for 6 or 7 sessions, but she had one session with Jeff Wilson, and that one session on top of the work she's done with me already, as I said, she's a different person tonight.
I love that. Okay, well, help us understand what the difference is for us if we have people who are actually suffering from, let's say, dementia, Alzheimer's versus the scrambled brain syndrome.
Yeah, it's very different. It's very different. It's interesting and different. I was with a dear friend this weekend who's been diagnosed with dementia. And she's not confused, talking and confused and not making any sense. She, with dementia, was repeating things as people do with Alzheimer's, the same thing. She was repeating how much, I have a car that she wasn't in many times. So she said to me, how much does your car cost? Did your car cost? Which is kind of a weird question for a friend to ask. But forgetting that part of it, I said, I honestly don't know. I know what I pay every month, but I don't know what the whole, the car costs. I really didn't think about it. My friend Michelle did the paperwork. I really didn't think about it. And later she said to me, well, wow, you don't know what your car cost? So like the same thing. So, repeating, looping back.
Yeah.
So that almost looks scrambled, but she was asking an intelligent question, and that's obviously important to her, which is, not important to me. I also noticed that when she observed something she couldn't figure out, she became very anxious. So we were in a coffee place after walking on the beach, on Padaro Lane, where they have that really nice coffee place, and we were sitting outside in the garden, and these guys were moving a huge planter. So they had, something to help them wheel it, and there were 4 or 5 guys, and I could see she became very anxious because she couldn't quite figure out what was happening, and it didn't compute. So now that's clearly a different story. Someone who's confused might make a comment about why do they need 5 guys, and one person could have done it, and might have an argument about it, that they may not be able to logically analyze that 5 people can move something that much faster, and they're all employed by the coffee place anyway, so it takes 5 minutes for 5 guys to do it, versus, that would be the logical thing. So someone who's confused can't logically figure out what the benefit is of doing it that way, or maybe the detriment of doing it that way. Whereas my dear friend who's got dementia, she just became anxious because she didn't know what was going on.
So that's what comes up. They can't sort through it, or they can
Exactly.
get really anxious.
That's right.
the difference.
Yes.
Oh, fascinating.
That's what I observed. Just
Yes.
just observed just this weekend.
Oh, we're learning all the time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I really do know that you have helped, of course, many, many people make solid decisions which they couldn't see for themselves. Can you describe the client who had complications after cataract surgery?
Yeah, and you know what I'd realized is you were asking me that last question. One of the distinctions I make between whether somebody may have some sort of a disease, Alzheimer or dementia, or ADD or ADHD, or they may have this, that, or the other thing, or there's just something scrambled going on, is the experience I have physically. Because being around somebody who's very, very confused, I just feel something weird is happening to me. It's as if I am in the middle of a tornado. If somebody isn't grasping the information, it's just like, you're going to maybe teach French to somebody who doesn't speak French. You're not going to get a headache. You're just going to go very slowly, and they'll learn as much as they can learn as fast as they can. So some of the distinction is over here in me, and that's
Yes.
really, really important. And so the decisions have to be based on facts. They have to be based on facts. And what happened with this friend in the cataract surgery is she had surgery. The surgeon warned her about the 2 different kinds of lenses he could put in her eye. One was the kind which is a crystal, which is the better, more expensive one, but the possibility of side effects were there. And then there was the old-fashioned one. She had the crystal one put in, and she had so much glare, she couldn't drive. So I said to her, what about anti-glare yellow glasses? Because there are different kinds of glasses for all sorts of things. Well, that didn't really work. She was fighting with the doctor at this point. I mean, fighting with them. They were talking about removing the lens, which is a whole major surgery, you know? I said, what is the biggest problem you have? Well, my prescription keeps changing, she said. I said, is it that, you know, your eye hasn't completely recovered from surgery yet, and so it's continuing to... Yes, that's what it is. I said, great. So you go to Costco or any of the eyeglass places that are inexpensive, and you make a deal with them so that every time you have to have your prescription changed in that eye, find somebody who's willing to do it for a little bit above cost. Because the problem was not how angry and upset she was about her prescription changing. It was the additional cost of having to have a new lens made all the time. Okay, so she solved that. Then she became very angry because she just still wasn't having an easy time driving and seeing. So that was still a problem. And I said, okay, well, let's go in the car together and let me see what's happening. Well, she's driving and she's not wearing glasses.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so at this point, it doesn't even make sense. Because here we've had this whole long conversation about glasses, about getting a better price. She's gotten a better price. She's got the glasses. Well, it turns out her doctor had told her that once she had the surgery, she wasn't going to need to wear glasses to drive. And because of that, she assumed that she wasn't going to have to wear glasses to drive. As soon as I convinced her to try the glasses, she had a completely different experience. I started to get scrambled brain on this. So I said, let me take you to the doctor. Let me see if I can take you to the doctor. Let me help you create the questions you want to ask the doctor. If you have trouble in the time, I will ask the questions for you. I will make notes of the answers. It's very important if somebody's, you know, in over their head for any reason, that, you know, you help them out and go with them and help them figure this stuff out, or, you know, or I will. And that was great. Now she drives.